in months, like literally like less than a month, she's thinking, how could I have possibly, how lost was I? How insanely lost was I? Yeah, so we're talking about, like really the idea of control, and the reason you're worried is because you feel like there's maybe something you could do or that you not do, or something beyond your ability to control when it comes to your dad. And we all have that. Everybody has that in their life, no matter how much faith you have. George Mueller, who's the ultimate sort of quintessential example of the guy who just had faith, right? He didn't know that, you probably know the story, right? George Mueller, he's got an orphanage. He runs out of food. There's no food anywhere. He brings all the kids downstairs. I think his wife says, who's living there, is like, so how do we feed these kids? We got 50 kids and no food for them. And Mueller just said, get them dressed, get them washed up, put them at the table. God will provide. He didn't know how. He didn't know what was about to happen. He didn't know where it was come from. He didn't know whether he was to, he just knew that God would do something. And so he just kind of waited, and he waited for God to do something. And then that, if you know the story, then out front, all of a sudden you've got this milk truck that literally breaks down, like a milk cart that breaks down in front of the orphanage, and is like, so I've got all this milk and it's going to go bad. Do you guys want it? And so he brings it up the stairs and gives it to the kids. And then like moments later, the baker comes in and he's like, God wouldn't leave me alone last night. Apparently you guys need a ton of bread. Here's a ton of bread. Boom. And he gives it to him. So I think, the amount of faith that we have, we kind of go, yes, we believe God's going to take care of it. But at the same time, we just don't know how. I think for me, yeah, and that's it too, Michael. Exactly. He didn't just wait. He prayed. Exactly. He gave it to God. He's like, he's done. And I think for me, there's an illustration there of, as a dad, my kids don't know how to get places. You know what I mean? Like when they were little and we went to Niagara Falls, or we went to the store, or we went to like anywhere, like literally if we drove around the block and then I dropped them off somewhere else, they wouldn't know how to get home. They were just in the car for the trip. They knew that they'd get there. They knew they'd get back because they knew they didn't even think about whether or not they'd get left on the side of the road and forgotten, because dad will take care of them. Mom will bring them home. And so I think for us in the same way, though it's hard, our relationship with God is very similar to that, in that we really don't have control, and we really don't have the ability to grab onto anything and hold on to it for any period of time. We just don't have the power. And therefore, can we just say, I don't have the wheel. I don't know how the map works. The GPS isn't talking to me, but I can trust that wherever I'm going, wherever he's taking me, he knows what he's doing. And that sounds, I hear that kind of advice, and it's hard to just leap on and say, just let go and let God, because so much of that Protestant work ethic, that so much of that, faith and works goes together, and even to Musical Angels comment is that, prayer is part of it too. And that's, so it's hard to just say, I'll let God do it. It's tough. I think from an American, Canadian perspective, Western perspective, where it's really, that pioneer independent spirit, my land, my way, my work will reward me, the American dream kind of thing. It goes very counter to the idea of, I'm going to let go of the control that I have over my future, of my job, of my family, of my future, of my relationships, and I'm just going to allow God to make it happen. It's really difficult to explain to this side of the ocean and this side of the world. I think more on when you talk to people, in the East, or you talk to people in, the South, like they can grab onto the idea of, well, yeah, the only way I get fed, the only way that I get work, the only way that my marriage stays together, the only way that I can take another step is if God allows it to happen, because there's far more oppression, there's far more difficulty, far more bad things are happening. So they recognize none of it's in their control. Whereas I think in the the land of the free, you feel like you have a lot more control. So letting go is harder. Well, it was interesting that God had already answered the prayer before he prayed. Same thing has happened to me too. Yeah, and that's it. He didn't get it because he prayed. That's sort of a misnomer. The reason he got it was because he was a man of prayer. His prayer wasn't the key. It wasn't the thing that clicked the switch to say, okay, since he did that, now the gumball, the quarter has fallen into the machine, now the gumball will come out. No, it was because he's a man of prayer, because he's a man of faith, because he's a man of trust. He was a man of, he knew God would provide, and that was a natural relationship. In the same way that if my kids have something, whether it be an older teen or, one of the younger ones, when they don't even think about not coming to me to ask for help. They never think, I don't know, is he going to help? They just come. They walk in, they're like, hey, can you come upstairs and do this? And hey, I need advice on that. And hey, how does this thing work? It's just the way our relationship is. And I think in the same way, our relationship with God is very much that, should be that paternal. Of course he's going to help. He's dad. Of course he's going to help. I don't know what he's doing. I don't know how he runs that machine. I don't know how he makes that car work. I don't know how he has these things happen, but I know that he can. It's just hard. It's just really hard. I make it sound like I'm, I've already got this in the bag, and I can't. I think I've been through a lot of different experiences when it comes to faith and need and provision and whatnot, but it's not like I don't have my fear or my doubts or my worries or any of that kind of stuff. Like, it's just a matter of the things that we're worried about. Like, I'm not super worried about money, but I do have a lot of worries about being hurt in relationships. Some people are like, I'm not too worried about relationship stuff, but I am worried about, where my next meal is going to come from, or how I'm going to pay my bills next month. It's a matter, there's going to be a different trigger for all of us. You know what I mean? All of it. Some people are going to be like, no, I don't care about money. I'm not worried about that. I don't need anything. God will provide. But I'm really worried about my health. As soon as I feel sick, all of a sudden I know that I feel like the world's going to come to an end. This is it. I'm going to die, and I don't want to be in pain. And I think everybody has that thing. It's not just money, or it's not just, a job or whatever, something to do with material possessions. I think everybody has a different thing that they worry the most about. For me, it's relational stuff, because of my past, because of all the, post-traumatic stress stuff, because of all the abuse and misery in my past. I'm far more triggered about the people that could potentially hurt me or could potentially cause difficulty, or anything that's said a little bit weird, that hits me harder. But the money thing doesn't really, right? And Jillican, to your point, yet that which Christ pull you out of can be your greatest mystery. That's exactly, I've been saying that, we say that all the time here. And that's the victory, the misery in your life, God turns into victory. There's a scripture in Romans chapter 8 that talks about how he makes us more than conquerors. And to be more than a conqueror is not just that you take over the land and wipe all the bad guys out, or wipe out the other nation. It's that you enslave the other nation. They're not only conquered, they're now work for you. And in the same way, God makes you more than a conqueror over all this stuff. In other words, the terrible things happen, the difficulty happens, the misery happens, the abuse happens, and God takes that, and he doesn't just allow you to forgive and remove the bitterness and to get rid of the deep pain and the scars, to allow you to go from not trusting anybody to trusting, to go from not always worried all the time to being in faith. Not just that, but actually creates a ministry, creates a mission in your life, because using that worst part of your life. It's an amazing gift, and it's a theological loophole, or a theological jump to kind of go, what, God caused all the horrible things because that way you'd be able to have this ministry. It's not really how it works. It's in this world of sin that God allows free will. People have the ability to hurt each other, and God does not always step in and stop all the horrible stuff, because he's showing us who we really are. and they're, in the end, when judgment comes, it'll all be sieved out. But right now, because of the horrible decisions of others, because of their own appetites and negativity and stuff, that has effect on everyone. It ripples out like black ink in water to touch everybody. And God goes, okay, but for my people, those who trust me, who believe in me, who pray to me, who are connected to me, who want me to take over their situations, to them, I'm going to, I can make them more than a conqueror over these things, like far more than they could otherwise by themselves. Christ built me out of a new age stuff, as well as religious, spiritual, hypocrisy, narcissism. Not that I was narcissist, though I did have narcissistic qualities. Yeah, and Jillikins, I think that's, knowing that about yourself is a big deal, right? When you look back at your old self, you look back at your old, who you were, and you go, wow, how did I not see? How did I do that to people? How was I able to get away with all that? And you just feel miserable because of who you were. It also is a reflection of how far you've come and what God took you through, and how much he saved you from. And then he's like, okay, so this is what my power can do, is take you from somebody who thinks of themselves and is constantly, superstitiously worried about everything, trying to control the everything from the world to the spiritual realm themselves, to realizing your place and finally being able to give that up, to say, okay, I'm not God and I will never be, and that's okay. That's a big, that's a miracle, right? Yeah, it's a miracle. I was very ashamed and angry at myself for leading folks away from Christ via the stuff I was into, and I thought that good. I honestly believed I was doing good. Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Is you feel. See, I grew up in a church, so I've been since age 6. I have always been in the church doing Christian stuff, being a Christian guy. So like the whole, falling into rebellion or being a militant atheist stuff, I didn't have any of that. It's not, but I know people who have. I had a friend who went from, full-on pagan, backyard, tree worshipping, hardcore vegan, like hugging trees and like crazy stuff in the background in her life, and telling everyone that, like, just being so angry at everybody over everything all the time, and believing in not only spiritual stuff but also the manipulation and witchcraft and just all sorts of insanity. And then God, like, out of nowhere gets a hold of her heart and comes back and in months, like literally like less than a month, she's thinking, how could I have possibly, how lost was I? How insanely lost was I? And then she starts thinking of all the people she just, tore into, and how many people that she pulled into essentially, almost Wiccan and naturalistic and pagan philosophy, and all these groups that she was part of, that she was literally like pushing people into like sexual sin and all that stuff because of natural blah blah blah. And she, it just took, for her to be forgiven of that, and for her to realize how forgiven she was, how loved she was, how, though she was really an enemy of Christ, how God loved her and saved her anyway. To see that kind of conversion was spectacular. Truly, like, there's no other word other than spectacular, because it's going from God hater who believes they are God, and is literally the Romans chapter 1 telling everybody the lies and making them believe it too, to someone who is pushing and hard on the truth. Yep. It always is. That's, I mean, if you look at Romans chapter 1, it's always, and then you give up God, and then you start worshiping animals, you start worshiping people, and in your worship of people, you worship self, and in worshiping and in worshiping self and people, you end up worshiping via sexual immorality. That's just the way it works. That's the math. Always will be, right?